So I'm here in my room. My computer is on in front of me with my microphone set up. There's a notepad open, and it's open to notes about my podcast, It's Time to Rewind. It looks like they're open to the 13th scene of Memento that starts in color at 27 minutes and 26 seconds, with Leonard waking up next to Natalie, and ends at 30 minutes and 38 seconds, with Teddy hopping on Leonard's hood saying, "Yo, Lenny." There's also a Skype window open. Hang on. Who is this?
This is Eric, Bubbawheat.
Oh, hello there. And who else is there? Who are you?
Oh, hey, Bubbawheat. It's Molly again.
Oh, of course. Thank you both for joining me again to talk about some more Memento here. And let's go ahead and jump straight into the scene. In the director's commentary, Christopher Nolan mentions that this scene is kind of a recreation of. It's like the literal version of how Leonard describes his condition as just like waking up.
Mm.
And I think this also feels a little bit like a metaphor for something that's relatable to a lot of other people, and not me specifically, because I'm not somebody that drinks very often, but I feel like it's kind of a typical trope for people who do get heavily drunk and wake up to somebody that they don't fully remember from the night before.
Yeah, it's great to see how his brain works here when he first comes out of memory loss. It's good for us as the viewer to see, since he goes through it constantly, that it's almost like it happens so much that it's an auto drive, right? His brain at this point, even though he has no short-term memory, knows what to do when there's a reset. So, all right, immediately, where am I? Look around, figures out, all right, this is a bedroom, but I don't think it's my bedroom, and just, it's sort of a survival instinct to kick in.
Yeah, and I like the interaction between him and Natalie. Just like he's in like investigation mode as he's looking at everything, and then he's kind of hovering over her, staring at her as she wakes up, and she has this little start whenever she sees him staring at her.
Yeah, she doesn't know if he's reset or not, right? I mean, she's panicking because this is very strange for her as the person interacting with him. Is he back to zero, or does he remember everything? I don't know.
I wasn't able to figure out if there's any like meaning behind it, but like the first things that he focuses on in her room is at first he sees this bird cage with two birds in it, and you can also see another cage slightly behind that one, which you can't really tell if it's another bird cage or maybe a small animal like it could possibly be like a hamster, a guinea pig cage. And then you see like the wall that is an open door and like a framed sketch of a child, like a pencil sketch of a child. And then you kind of see just all the various books and knickknacks on the shelf of the headboard of the bed. Did anything like stand out, or did either of you pick up any meanings in those little background details?
Well, she's a bit of a slob, right? I mean, that headboard is a complete disaster. I mean, she likes to read, but she also is a bit of a slob.
That totally didn't occur to me, and that's way on for you to notice that, and for me to be like, oh no, the house looks pretty good. I think the caged birds really got to me. I was like, oh, it's interesting that they're in the bedroom, and it's interesting that, a caged bird kind of symbolizes like trapped freedom. And I personally, I think birds are great. It's not for me to own birds because I feel personally a little bit bad about caging a bird.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that reason, that kind of stuck out to me.
That's a good point about that she keeps them in her bedroom, because I've never had a bird either, and I never would either for the same reason. I don't know why you would get a bird to keep it in a cage, but don't most people have birds when it's night, they put like a canopy or a blanket on top of it, and you don't keep them in your bedroom because otherwise they could chirp and keep you up all night, correct?
That is correct, yes. My mother-in-law has a parrot, and that's how she takes care of the parrot. Parrot does not hang out in the bedroom, and you do have to put a covering on it, so you tell it basically, hey, it's night time.
Yeah, I'm not, very familiar with birds other than, like we said, kind of the cage bird metaphor. So yeah, I wouldn't know that either. And then going back to the next part of the scene, I think just the fact that that the last time we saw these two characters, they were friendly, but it seemed platonic, and now we're seeing the two of them wake up in bed together, and it creates a lot of questions, and not just for Leonard, of course, as we hear him talk about and in the narration, but also like for the audience, like you might be thinking, did the two of them just have sex last night? And it's kind of undercut by Natalie feeling his chest tattoos and calling them pretty weird, as if she hadn't seen them the night before. And I think it's interesting because like the way she feels his chest tattoo is almost exactly the way that she did feel the same spot on his chest the night before, which we'll be talking about again next week. But I thought it was worth bringing up this connection.
Yeah, this is an interesting scene because as you're trying to kind of unwind on first view, like, okay, what happened here? Kind of like what you're saying, did they make the sex, but she's clothed and he's kind of partially clothed, so that didn't entirely track of like, okay, well, maybe you guys didn't actually do something, but obviously it's something really intimate happening because you shared a bed together. So that's kind of interesting. And then you have her, like you're saying, being awfully familiar with like touching him, because that's a pretty intimate act to do, for another person, right? Like you're really kind of palpating the area there, sister. So I mean, that's not, it's interesting to me.
It's again playing into like I said, how I'm keeping my memory of the movie a bit off by having not rewatched it in more than a year. So and since I've only seen this movie a total of 3 times, so some of the memories of the movie are vague. When I rewatched this scene, because I don't entirely remember exactly what happens next, there's a bit of a discomfort on, were they together, or is, because I do remember the gist of Natalie, or was this some, fake thing that she's setting him up to make him think they were together or not? And I think that as a viewer, even if it's your first time watching the movie, I think you're already wondering that, were they together or not? Because yeah, he's still in pants with the belt on. That's not usually how you are after the act.
Unless it's a PG movie.
Yeah, unless it's a PG movie.
Something.
Like she conceivably could be in clothes that you would be. If she threw after. But I mean, you don't put a nice pair of khakis into the belt, though. So there was something off, I guess, is the way I would put it.
Yeah, and then this I know Molly brought it up the last time she was on, but this is where Leonard actually compares his tattoos to writing the phone number on your hand, which is something that I actually don't have any experience with because I wasn't, that wasn't something that I did in high school, and then by the time I was out of high school, I had a cell phone, so if I ever needed to save somebody's cell phone, or save somebody's number, I would just put it in my cell phone. Is writing a phone number on your hand something that either of you are more familiar with?
I always write things on Post-it notes and stick them in my pocket before I had a cell phone. And I actually still sometimes do, even just so old habits die hard. I never wrote on my hand because I feel like it's too much of a risk of, I mean, the next time you wash your hand, you're gonna lose the note.
Well, I'm a dirty fool, and I would definitely. I really look who's sanitary. I definitely used my hand to write on quite a bit. And I guess maybe I use like the top of my hand a lot for. That's what it was. I would usually use the top of my hand to write things on, because I think in my brain, wow, I'm going deep with this, but I think in my brain, if I was going to wash my hands, I was thinking about like more my palms and the tips of my fingers touching something objectionable versus the back of my hand being problematic. So I think I usually found it to be a safe zone. But now that I'm talking this out in the tail end of a pandemic, obviously I'm changing that. So I'm glad that Eric is both tidy and obviously knows how to wash his hands. So in case anybody needed to know.
After that bit, I think that Natalie also shows her unreliability as a character, especially on like multiple watches, because here she's acting like she's seen the tattoos for the first time, but then even whenever she tells Leonard about the license plate that she's going to get for him, she mentions that it's tattooed on his left thigh, and she says that very matter-of-factly. And I also think that it's very telling for Leonard's current state of mind that after she leaves the room, he actually takes his pants off and double-checks his thigh to make sure that she's telling the truth. Because he did get out of the bed with his pants on, but then you see him in his underwear checking his tattoos on his thighs.
I just, yeah, I mean, there's only one way for her to know that tattoo is there. Yeah, the pants were off at some point.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, he goes back to his like security blanket of his Polaroids in the jacket pocket, and we again get to see his notes with the scribbled out top line, and where it says that she has lost someone and will help you out of pity. And then we also get this him saying that he's not good over the phone, as he asks her to write, to set the meeting now. We don't know it at this point, but I believe that he probably noticed his never answer the phone tattoo as he was checking out for the license plate tattoo as well.
Yeah, I mean that could be why he's saying I'm not good on the phone. But it could just be one of those things that's innate to him, that because he knows he has the memory problem, because he knows he likes to look into someone's eyes when he speaks to them. That just doesn't work with phone conversations. But also if the movie, help me out here, Bubba, since I'm not the co-host for the black and white scenes. If the movie were to be watched in actual chronological order, at this point, the black and white scenes, that would have already occurred, correct?
Yeah, the black and white scenes would have happened before he kills Jimmy.
Right.
At the end of the movie, which is the middle chronologically.
Right. Okay.
And he, if this takes place over the course of just a couple days, so it was just a couple days ago whenever he was still answering the phone and talking on the phone.
Right. Okay.
Although you're bringing up a point here, he's awfully calm in the face of finding tattoos. Because if he has no short-term memory, right? So he's discovering tattoos that he's already done. But there is this kind of like weird, like she's pointing out tattoos on him and he's not alarmed by it. Like it's kind of like he's accepted, like he knows he has them. And I find that kind of interesting. Because like when you wake up and be like, holy shit, covered in tattoos.
I mean, he never seems surprised by anything. Like he's always, I think it has to do with his personality. He's always like curious and investigative. Like he doesn't take anything. He's not typically shocked by anything that I can remember. It's, every time that he sees his tattoos, quote unquote, for the first time, it's always like more of a curiosity. He slowly starts looking at them and reading them as if for the first time, but he's never surprised by them.
Yeah, that was in that one of the first episodes that we recorded, where the scene where he's he's taking off his shirt and his pants, and he's, for us, the viewer, we're seeing all these tattoos for the first time, and he clearly has no memory of them and is going through them, and it's just a very stone-faced, methodical, just reading each one and taking each one of them in as he reads them.
Mm. And, you know, as the two of them are, I feel like it's just him kind of making conversation. He brings up literally the only thing that he thinks he knows about Natalie, that she's helping him out of pity. And Natalie immediately corrects him by saying that she's helping him because he helped her. And it goes by quickly, but I think that that's very important to how you're supposed to look at this movie. Because in her correcting him, what she's actually doing is she's casting doubt on the accuracy of his entire Polaroid notes.
Mm.
Because, you know, he reads his notes and he thinks, oh, she's helping him out of pity, but that turns out to not be true. So what else about his Polaroid notes are not true?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of notes, we finally get to see this note, which has been a key plot point for a couple of different scenes now, actually getting written. We don't see exactly what she writes, and we do not see her handwriting either, which I think is important, which we'll find out later on. But in addition to that, because I know we've talked about the method of writing, is this a pencil or is that eyeliner?
Yeah, it's a makeup pencil.
It is,
and I
right?
think,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And I believe that she's using that because and we'll be talking about this in a few weeks, because she gathered up all the pens and pencils in her house, and they're all probably still in her car.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, no one's going to waste like good makeup for this. You know, that's how you know it's vengeance, because we're willing to sacrifice a $20 eye pencil for it.
Well, I think that looks like. I mean, it's hard to tell, but that type of eye pencil, I think those could be like one of the cheap ones.
You don't think Natalie uses high class makeup?
Well, it was like, that's no Mac pencil.
I mean, I can't tell for sure, but so maybe it's. I would think that she would be more likely to pull out her cheap one rather than use an inexpensive one.
Yeah, no, that's fair too. That's fair too. That, you know, she's a discerning gal. I do like how it looks kind of, I don't know, Saw-like. There's kind of like a strange crayon-y horror kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about this in the episode that we recorded later, but like it is kind of a weird handwriting that she switches between print and cursive in a few of the letters.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get this, again, it's like this kind of moment of weird intimacy that is confusing and kind of keeps the audience on your toes, as she pulls Leonard down and asks if he won't remember her the next time he sees her, and then kisses him and whispers, "I think you will." And I'm honestly not sure what to think about this moment. Like, what do you think is going on? And like, what do you think Natalie is trying to do? Is she just like messing with him at this point?
I say yes. I don't see any other reason for her to. I mean, it's such a, under normal circumstances, it would be such a loving thing to say, especially because she says it in a whisper. You know, there's the intimacy of it being a whisper, and there's no other motivation for her to do that.
Yeah, I could see that. I think she's either kind of messing with her, or I think, like we talked about in our last episode, that this is also like she's testing him. Like, she's not testing him now, but this is a test for the next time that she sees him.
Mm.
Yeah, I think this is definitely her testing him and trying to feel him out. And I think because she is going to be setting him up for a crime, I think she needs to understand the limits of his memory. And so I think that's some of this. And, you know, it also could be, you know, person to person, because she doesn't, I think, know what happened. I think she presumes something very, very bad happened, but she doesn't know specifics. So the whole thing is really strange and intimate, because you would think that, how would you even tolerate having someone in your house or in your bed, and be able to play that kind of long game, and then for her to even, be. But I think maybe that's some of it too, is her kind of feigning the affection, maybe is kind of testing him to see if he can, reciprocate, or, because ordinarily this would just be a deception up and down. Like, is a deception even necessary? Right. Because we see later that she gets pretty, aggressive, and kind of comes to the conclusion it doesn't matter what she does. But this is kind of interesting, because I think if you watch this dry without the context of the later scene, he's kind of a dick. He's not very compassionate or open to her. She's like, oh, I think you'll remember me. Like, will you remember me? He's like, no, not so much.
Yeah, even the way he shakes. Cold. Yeah, even the way he shakes his head no is very nonchalant. Like, nah, I'm not gonna remember you. And then like, I think you will, with the whisper and the kiss. And he's like, he just kills him. And no, I'm sorry, and he just walks away.
It's just like, oh, sweetie. I mean, ordinarily you would see this and just be like, oh, girl, I want so much better for you, because he's terrible. You just get yourself an emotionally available man. He's just like, he's not okay.
Yeah, this is kind of him getting back to that cold and emotionless mode that I was talking about the last time you were on. Like, this isn't, the moment of sad introspection.
It's also could be that, and this is something in the next episode we have with Molly next week, so I won't get too into this point right now, but he also could consider this being unfaithful to his wife.
Oh.
There's coming up in the next episode we're going to record something about the time that has passed since Catherine died. And he may feel like, not only will I not remember you because of my condition, but anything that we might have done or anything we might do, that's me being unfaithful, and I can't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Because didn't you also, Bubbawheat, didn't you say that in a previous episode we recorded with a different guest, that there's that theory going out there that Catherine's not actually dead?
Yeah. I haven't fully rewatched the entire movie with the commentary again yet, because I'm kind of doubting my own memory on that. I'm wondering if I added the part with the possibility of her being alive. But yeah, I did kind of throw that out as a possibility. There's definitely the connection, and I don't think this is going to come up next episode. So, Molly, let me ask you, like, do you think that the story that Leonard tells about Sammy Jenkins is actually talking about himself? Like, in the last scene, Teddy casts doubt on his story and makes him think that his wife was actually the one with diabetes and needed the insulin shots, and that Leonard's wife survived the attack, but she died because of the insulin shot test.
That's how I interpreted it. I interpreted it as, because it kind of, not to, ruin things again in later, but there is that kind of like shot that they have at the tail end where he's kind of pinching her a little bit, like in the hip, and it's kind of this playful thing. But then you have this flash of him giving her the insulin shot, and then it goes back to him kind of pinching the hip. So it's almost like there's some debate in his head, like he's not able to really remember her exactly, and it does cast doubt. So I interpret it as like what he's remembering for Sammy really was what was happening for him, and she's dead, and she did the insulin test and just got fed up and died. Okay,
yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where everybody lands on that, but and there is no definitive answer. That it is, this is a movie full of unreliable characters.
Oh yeah, and I think there's totally a case someone could make to say that she survived that, she's alive, and he got put in a home and went off the reservation. Maybe Teddy picked him up at some point and then went on this run. So we don't know.
And then, the last thing for this scene, we do get a couple moments of humor. The first one as Natalie tosses technically Jimmy's shirt, but the one that Leonard was wearing, and asks for her own white blouse back because Leonard put on the wrong shirt, just because that was the one next to his suit with the Polaroids. And then as he gets into the car and starts heading out, we have Teddy just popping up out of nowhere and literally falling on the hood of Leonard's car.
Have you all talked about the Jag at all?
Not yet, just because it's, at this point, the movie kind of gives it to us at face value that this is Leonard's car.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We definitely have I think you're right. There's an impression that he's an affluent dude and just, some bad stuff's kind of happened to him, hence the suit and the Jag. But yeah, I just didn't know if you guys had talked about I always really liked this car. I'm not a Jaguar fan personally, but I always like this one.
Yeah, it's like it's a cute little car, kind of the way I think about it. Just a nice little convertible, but it's I think it's usually, very dirty. Like it's not a bright, shiny, brand new car, but it is like an expensive car that's well used.
I think that's why I like it. I like that it isn't pristine, that it's a little rough, that somebody just enjoys driving it, but isn't obsessive about taking care of it.
Even though we find out that, it's most likely just because he took it out to this abandoned, place and got it all dusty.
Right.
Because there's a good chance that it was pristine and clean the day before. But Leonard's not going to remember to wash it.
No.
Much like Molly and her hands.
Yes. I'm so glad this is out on the internet. But good hand washer, I swear.
I did not have anything else on this specific minute, but I did want to call back to something from the last time Molly was on. That she mentioned she is, she really has been loving the movie Tenet, which of course is another Christopher Nolan movie. And Christopher Nolan, as I said, is my favorite director. And just for anyone who might not know, Molly and I were co-hosts for Escape from New York Minute, a previous Movies by Minute show. And I don't know if this came up on the air or not, or if this was an off-the-air conversation, but Molly and I would often discuss Christopher Nolan because we both were fans. But where we diverged was I feel that his 3 Batman movies are the worst things that he's done and can kind of live without them. And Molly thought that was quite blasphemous. And so I just wanted to make sure that all the listeners heard that little tidbit.
It makes me so sad. It's so true. It's so true. It's also the other part of this is we seem to have movies in common, but we never could find them when we were recording together. In fact, to the point where I asked him to take a picture of his movie collection and text it to me because I didn't believe him. And I didn't understand. I'm like, what have you been watching for the last 30 years? Like, I don't get it. But obviously we do have several movies in common. Hence, here we are again.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, at least anymore, that I feel like I have to have an ulterior motive to watch, to actually take the time to watch a movie. So it's like I tend to not watch as many movies unless I'm recording a podcast on it or writing a blog post on it. So even though I also really love Christopher Nolan, I haven't gotten around to Tenet just because I haven't had that ulterior motive in order to get myself to take the time out to watch Tenet.
It's worthwhile. I mean, definitely, Eric is spot on. It's much more confusing than this movie, but if I had to make a suggestion, watch it twice in the same week, and you'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I can see that. I've done that with a couple confusing movies. I know I did that the first time I watched Primer.
Oh right.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But thank you once again for joining us here, Molly. And for anybody else listening at home, why don't you go ahead and take another moment to plug any of your other stuff and let them know where they can find you online.
I'm on Twitter as Dharma Soda Pop, and I produce a podcast called Wednesday Wake Up, and that's at wednesdaywakeup.com, and it's about Buddhism and meditation and psychology, and we have we're going to have a couple of author guests that are going to be coming on too, so it's going to be a multitude of voices coming on, but that is the big project I've been working on for the last year or so.
Nice. And thank you, as always, Eric, for being my co-host through this color half of this movie. And as always, I am your host, Bubbawheat, and you can find me on Twitter where I'm at Bubbawheat. You can find this show, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. We have a Facebook group, It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group. You can join that and discuss episodes as they come out, or have discussions about time loop movies or TV shows, anything, or even novels, short stories. It's all welcome there. And until next time, have I told you about Memento?
Only every time I see you.
So next time you see me, will you remember me?